Hello beautiful people. Today let's make a Zack D Film video instead of Blender 3D. And we are really gonna go in depth on navigating inside of the viewport, creating cool sets, importing materials and models, then animating them. Also we're gonna make him grab a gun and shoot at this model over here. And finally we're gonna record all of that with a cool camera and do all these sexy animations. And if you stick along till the end, you will be able to make your very own Zack D Film video instead of Blender 3D. Now before you touch our keyboard and do all this fancy stuff, let's talk about how a tutorial like this would have an impact in your career. If you're here to learn stuff just for fun, then skip to this time frame to watch the tutorial. But if you want to make some real money with these animated videos, then this part is really crucial. So these are the two ways in which you can monetize these videos. Number one, this in-depth video is gonna teach you most of everything you wanna know about Blender 3D. And by the end of it, you can make a 3D animation like this and start a shorts channel and start uploading some videos, get monetized and make some money. Realistically speaking, if you don't know anything about YouTube Shorts, it can take a month or two to actually start earning money. But if you're really good with it, you will be able to monetize the channel within weeks, as these 3D animated videos get tons of views and you'll be able to get to that 10 million mark very easily. After monetization, YouTube will pay you around 20 to 30 cents per 1,000 views. But this is if your viewers are from the first world countries. So if everything goes well, you can pretty much make lots of money with these videos. But if you want to earn some money as soon as possible, then this is where option number comes in. See, as of now, I'm getting lots of DMs from big creators and short channel owners who are looking for a 3D artist who can animate videos like Zack D Film. So basically, they want a partner like you who is good with 3D animations, or they might hire you as a service provider or a freelancer. So the better you practice 3D, the better you'll grow in this section. But let me be honest, even if you're picking any of these options, don't wait this opportunity out. Start learning now itself. Complete this tutorial and make a video as soon as possible. Because right now, the demand for a 3D artist who could make short form videos like this are too damn high. And you can monetize your talent in multiple ways. So don't wait it out and miss the opportunity. Just start right now and be the best artist out there. Also, make me proud. I want to see you guys grow. Now let's get into the main video. I'm using Blender 4.2.1. Let's fire it up, and over here let's play with our default cube. In order to scale the cube, click on S and just move the cursor. Left click on the mouse button to confirm its size. Rotations can be done with R. And if you want to move your cube around, just press G. For this video, the cube is going to act as a set, and later on we are going to add a grid texture. So it's better if you make our cube a little bit bigger. Now I need to move this cube to this area because right now the cube is on half land, half underground kind of area. So let's bring it all the way up to the origin, and for that click on G to grab our cube, and after that hit Z so that we can only move the cube in the Z axis. Alright, now let's move it up to this horizon line. Also, we can move it on both x-axis by clicking on G and then clicking on this X to limit the movement to the x-axis, and also the same goes for y-axis as well. Now, if you want to navigate, the middle mouse button is going to help you rotate the view according to the cursor movement like this. But if you want to pan this preview, you can click on Shift and then click on the middle mouse button. The scroll up is zoom in and the scroll down is zoom out. Now, we need to enable an important option inside of Blender. Because if that option is disabled and if we zoom in further into the cube, you can see that after a limit the zoom just freezes. And it's next to impossible to go inside our cube, which is not good because we are going to do all our animation inside this area, right? So in order to fix this issue, let's go to the edit option over here and click on preference. Then on the navigation tab, just enable the depth. Now we can exit the screen and go right inside of our cube. And with the shift key pressed, we can explore inside like this. If you're having any confusion, just rewatch this part. And if everything is perfect, let's move on to the next step, which is to bevel the edges of our cube to make it look more smooth. Because it makes the background look a bit more better than the sharp edges. But before all of that, let's save our file and give it a name. For that, use the short key Ctrl+S. And on this screen, let's make a folder and name it Armadillo1. Now navigate inside our folder, and over here, let's change our Blender file name to Armadillo Video and then hit save. Now back to our video. So in order to bevel the cube, you have to go towards edit mode. Either you can click on this option and select edit mode, or you can just click on tab and it will take you to this mode. And over here, we have to select this option, which only select the edges of our cube. Now you can go and click on each edges to select them. For a quicker result, you can select one edge and then use a short key, which is Ctrl+L, to select every edges which are linked to the cube. As our edges are selected, it will be easier to bevel it. And for that, go towards the modifiers tab over here and click on add modifier. And then just search for bevel modifier and you will have something like this. And over here, if we increase the amount, then we will have a much larger surface area for the smoothing to take place. I'm going to keep it at 0.15 and increase the segments to have that smooth finish that we want. I'm going to set this to 25 and this will be our result. Now we can exit the edit mode by clicking on tab, and the next step would be to add that blue grid texture to our cube. I forgot to tell you one thing, which is this blue grid texture as well as every other 3D model we are using inside of this video will be available in the description. You can always download them for free and use it in your projects. No issues there. But if you want to grab this project file which I am working on right now, then you can tap on this link which will take you to Gumroad. Now all the animations and the camera movement along with the camera settings and everything I have done inside of this project file will be there. So if you want to support this channel and help me create more videos like this, then do check it out. Now let's get back to our texturing. For adding this blue grid background to our cube, we can go to this materials tab and we can rename this to blue grid. Now on the base color section, you will see this yellow dot. Click on it and select image texture. Two new boxes will appear. Click on the open option, locate our blue grid background and select open image. Even after doing that, we really can't see anything, right? That's because we are currently on this solid render mode. And we have to change it to texture mode by clicking on this option. And just like that, our cube, which has been covered with this grid background, is now visible. But still, the blue grid background is not properly projected to the cube. And it's so big and not so clean at this moment. And in order to fix that, we have to open one more window to play with the scale settings of this blue grid background. And for that, move the cursor to this corner like this and it will turn into a crosshair-like shape just like we see in the games. Now click and drag to create a secondary viewport like this. On this viewport, we have to change the editor type to UV editor and now we have this grey grid screen. Now in order to bring our blue grid, we can go towards this image icon and select our blue grid image. And if we zoom out, we can see our entire image like this. But we can't see anything on our screen, right? Like we can't use the scale options or the rotation, or we can't even move it anywhere. So in order for us to have this flexibility, we need to go towards the secondary viewport. Make sure you select the cube and hit tab to go towards edit mode. Right now we can see this unwrapped cube texture on our screen. And each face is laid out for us to have a better understanding on how the textures is being applied to the cube. Don't worry about it, just press U on your keyboard to bring the unwrap options and just select cube projection. Now we have a single cube to play with. What we have to do next is to hit S on our keyboard to scale this cube projection lines. And you know what? Take it all the way up. If you do that, we can see the grid on our cube is also getting scaled down, giving us this perfect set for our 3D animation. Now we are going to move our first viewport to the side. We are going to need it later in the video, but for now, let's keep it aside. And the next step would be to hide the cube and start importing our models. And for hiding the cube, just go towards this area, which in my knowledge is called the outline area, and just click on this I button to hide it. Then let's import our models. And for this video, we are going to use a rigged animated character, a gun, a bullet and an armadillo model. We are not going to create anything from scratch except for this grass, which we will be making after a while. But for now, let's focus on this rigged character. And in order to make our life easier, there is a website called Mixamo, and what this website offers is a wide variety of models which you can download for free. After creating an account, you can start browsing these characters by clicking on this button. There are some cool assets over here which can help you in your future videos as well. But for now, I'm just going for this character called Leonard. One of the important features about this website is the addition of character rigging to any of these characters we select. And this rigging is basically like puppeteering. We the 3D artists are like the puppeteers and these models are the puppets. And also these strings are like these rigged bones. So in order to make our character do all these kind of fancy movements as per our command, we need to learn rigging. And this rigging can be really hard for a beginner to learn. And for a smooth character movement, we definitely need to have some experience in this area. But that's where this animation section in Mixamo website comes into place. And I'll show you how it's done. So we have already selected our Leonard model from our character section, right? Now let's head over to our animation tab and just click on any of these animations. For an example, I am selecting this jump down animation over here. Mixamo will start processing our request and within seconds we will have this jump down animation linked to our Leonard character. We also have the sliders on the right hand side to tweak our animation values, but we are not going to use it now. But what we are going to do is to search for a shooting animation because as per our reference video, we need Leonard to shoot at an armadillo. So let's search for this animation over here. And these are our results. I'm going to select this shooting one because it fits best for our pistol animation. Now if we zoom in, we can find a small error with this animation. Can you guess what it is? It's over this area where the hand grabs the gun. Even if we imagine a pistol over there, the hands are not too close enough to grab it. So in order to fix that, just decrease the character arm space to something like 46 or 47. Right after that, let's download our model by clicking over here. Now again, click download. And I would highly recommend you to create an asset folder in which you can dump all these assets. After this, we need a gun, a bullet, and an armadillo model. And don't worry, I'm not gonna waste your time by going and searching for it one by one. I've already downloaded all of these and packed them inside of a folder, which you can easily download and use as a reference. And these links will be there in the description. So after downloading all these assets, I've put them into a folder like this, so it will be easier to access while we are doing these projects. Now what we have to do is to import it into our scene. And for that, you have to pay attention to two settings. First of all, if you are opening a .blend file like this, then you'll have to go towards your Blender. Then under File, you will see this Append option. If you click on Append, you will have an option to import your blend files into your scene. But for now, I'm not going to do that because this is our actual project file, which is our armadillo video. But if there are files with the .blend extension, you can't actually import it using this import option. You'll have to click on this Append option. But if you're using any other files which has this .blend extension, then please do use this Append option. The next thing to keep in mind is to go towards your assets and find what kind of file type it is. So this one is a .fbx file. So it can be easily imported with this .fbx option. But in case if it's something different, like let's see, this is also an fbx. For a bullet, there are 3 different file types. So the first one is a blend file. Then there is a .dae file and also an object file. Also, there is another thing which is this armadillo is a .glb file. So whenever you're clicking on import, you can see all these options over here. So if Blender supports these options, it can certainly be imported to our scene. So without wasting any time, let's import each of these objects into our scene. So for that, I'm using the file. I'm going to use import. The first file which we located was the .fbx file. So I'm going to click on .fbx. Then I'm going to go inside our asset file and I'm going to import our model, which is this shooting one. So this one is a model which we imported from Mixamo right now. So if we click on this one and click on import fbx, we will have a file which will be ready by now. Yes. So we have a model with our animation ready. And in order to play our animation, we can just pull this bar up and click on our space bar. And we can see that our character has this small firearm firing pose. Yeah, that's perfect. The next thing to do is to import our gun. In order to do that, we have to go towards the file, click on import, and I hope the gun was a .fbx file. So let's click on that and go towards our handgun. Under source, you can find this handgun.fbx file. Just click on it and import. And sometimes the scale of our models can be a little bit different. So right now, if I click on scale, then only I can see the gun, and it doesn't have the same scale with respect to our model. So in order to fix that, we have to just click on S and you have to increase it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. We are just making shorts videos. So we can just scale it as much as we want and we can place it next to our model like this. And for placing, we can use our arrow bars like this, or you can click on the G button on our keyboard, which can be used to freely move our gun like this. And in order to do this more accurately, you can press on the number 1 on your keyboard to get to the front view. The 3 will be the side view. The 7 will be the top view. And the 0 is like the camera view. So these are the important keys that you should remember. So we're going to use the number 3 in order to go to the side view. Then what we have to do is to rotate our gun 90 degrees like this. And in order to be more precise, you can just type in the value 90 over here. But actually it's not 90, it's actually minus 90 in order to get to our view. And you can see all these values are getting inputted over here. So we can have a better understanding on whatever angle our rotation is happening. So after fixing this rotation, we can click on the screen. Then the next thing to do is to actually turn our gun 180 degrees from the top side view. So in order to go to the top side view, you have to click on the number 7. And over here, we can again click on the R button. And we can type down this value, which is 180 like we did before, and rotate our gun 180 degrees like this. And in order to see if you've done it right, you can click on the mouse wheel button and just click and drag in order to see this perspective view over here. So this looks perfect to me. So the next step would be to just place it along the character's arms. It requires a little bit of tweaking in order to fix it exactly on top of our character's arms. And it doesn't matter right now because we need to reposition it again because we need to parent this gun to this guy's hand, which will all be happening in later part of this video. So don't worry about it. But one serious thing which is happening right now is that our gun is missing its textures. So our gun is supposed to have this black glossy look, but this is a pink gun, which is not accurate, which means that our textures have not been imported into our gun. So in order to import our textures, we can just move it over here so we can better select it again if we just lose our selection. So in order to import our textures, what we have to do is to pull this window to the side, and over here we can go to shader editor and we can see that nothing has been added over here. Then we can go to armature over here and we can just hide it because we don't need it right now. This armature is supposed to animate our gun. So whatever animation is going to happen to our gun is being controlled by these bones. So I'll explain all of that later in the video. So right now let's focus on our materials. So in order to fix our materials for the gun, let's select the gun first. Then I'm gonna join all these parts by clicking on the shortkey called Ctrl+J. And after doing that, we will have one single object like this. And in order to fix this, let's select all these nodes over here like this and click on delete. And then we will have this white gun which doesn't have any materials over it. And at this point, we have to go towards our edit mode. Then we have to go towards preference and we have to enable an add-on called as Node Wrangler. So I've already enabled it. That's why it's available over here on the side. So after enabling the add-on, we can go towards our Node Wrangler. Then we can scroll in and select our principal BSDF node. And on the Node Wrangler settings, we can go towards this Add Principal Setup. And over here, we can navigate to our gun. And under textures, we can see all these files. The albedo, emission, normal, roughness, all these textures will be there. So we have to select all of them and click on Principal Texture Setup. And after doing that, all of these nodes will be added to our principal BSDF node. And with that, we will have these textures on our gun. And also don't forget to save your file every couple of minutes because it's really important. Alright, so the gun as well as the textures are neatly done. The next step would be to import our bullet into the scene. And for that, let's go to its file. And over here, let's click on import. And we know that the bullet is not an FBX file. It is a .obj file or a .dae file. So for importing the model, what we have to do is to go towards Blender. Then on the file menu, we can go towards import and then we can click on this wavefront.obj in order to import our bullet into the scene. Then we can locate our bullet file, which is this shared bullet.obj file. Click on it and just click on import wavefront.obj. After doing that, we have an insanely big bullet in our scene. So let's scale it down. Click on S and then drag it so that it becomes smaller and smaller like this. Yes, that's perfect. Then we can use the G button to keep it aside like this. The next step would be to delete all these things because we are not gonna need any of these things. We just need the bullets. And yes, there it is. We have our bullet. Also, we are not gonna need this guy over here. We just need this one. So we're gonna press on 1 to go to the front view. Then we're gonna grab our bullet and place it somewhere over here next to our character. Then we're gonna click on 3 to go to the other view. Over here, we can see that the bullet has been flipped to 180 degrees onto the opposite direction. So we need to fix that. And for that, let's click on R and we can rotate it like this and type 180. And just like that, our bullet has been rotated. But we can see that the pivot point of this bullet is over here. And in order to fix that, let's go to its object, then go to set origin. And then we can click on this origin to geometry option. And just like that, we have our origin over here. Right now, our bullet is not having any textures. So in order to fix that, we can click on any part of the bullet like this and see that there are no materials which are being attached to this bullet file. And we don't necessarily have to get the actual bullet textures for this. We can just give it some color and make it metallic so that it will have the same textures of our bullet. For an example, I'm gonna paint this part of the bullet as yellow and this part would be silver and this will also be yellow. So for that, just click on this part of the bullet, then go towards our base color. Then we can set this yellow color like this. It can be anything. You can use an actual reference image to set this up, but I'm just showing you how things works inside of Blender. The next step would be to go towards this metallic properties and increase it all the way up like this. I guess it's gonna give our bullet a shiny effect. Let's see. And after that, let's bring down the roughness a little bit down like this. So we will have this effect on our bullet. In order to see the bullet is metallic or not, let's import a light source into the scene. And for that, let's click on Shift A. And over here, let's click on this light and bring in a point light. And then if you move the point light like this, we can see that the bullet is having few changes on its textures like this, which means that it is having that metallic properties. Now let's do the same thing with this middle portion. So let's click on this part. Then on the base color, let's set it to somewhat gray. Then I'm gonna increase this metallic properties like this and also decrease the roughness like this. I think we can also bring it a little bit up like this, so it will have that little bit of whitish shade. I'm just gonna move the light to see if we have done a good job. I guess this is good. And for the tip, we don't have to mess around with the settings. We can go towards the first part, and then we can copy this principal BSDF node with the shortkey Ctrl+C. And then we can delete this one and we can connect the BSDF to the surface, and just like that our bullet is done. I highly recommend you not to do this because this is the worst way to make a bullet. I don't think the bullets are supposed to look like this. But I guess you understood how to change the color of an object inside of this shader editor. And I'm gonna throw an actual image of a bullet on the left hand side over here, which you can actually use to make a real bullet. But for now, let's keep it like this. Oh wait, let's change this color to the yellowish shade as well. And just like that, our bullet is also done. The next step would be to join these three objects into one. And for that, we have to use that Ctrl+J option to combine these three objects into one. And just like that, we have our bullet over here. And let's rename this to bullet 1. You can also delete the point light which we just imported. We are not going to use it right now. So right now, our bullet, the gun, as well as our model is ready. The next step would be to import our armadillo into the scene. And for that, let's locate the folder and see what kind of an extension the armadillo is having. So in order to import the armadillo, I'm going to use the same steps, which is File. And over here, I'm going to click on this option. And then we have to locate the armadillo inside of our source folder and import it into the scene. And just like that, our armadillo is also in our scene. And the textures are also imported perfectly, which made our work a little bit more easier. Now we just need to reposition it over here like this. And we can scale it like this so that it will be more visible on our camera. Right now, all our models are ready. The next step would be to animate these models. And we have already animated one of our objects from our Mixamo website. And we can use the same data to the gun as well as the bullet to animate these three elements at the same time. And for mimicking the animation, we have to select this Leonard character because the Leonard character is having the main animation, right? So over here, we can go and select him like this. Also, don't forget to uncheck the bonds, which is this one. And after doing that, we can see that only the Leonard has been selected and not the bonds. This is really important. So only select the character, which is our Leonard, and not the bonds. And after selecting the character, let's click on Ctrl+J to combine the model into one. And if we move our character like this, we can see this deformation happening. That is okay, we can click on Escape to reset it. The next step would be to click on our bones, which has been connected to our Leonard. So these bones are the ones which are actually controlling our character. So all the animations are being applied on top of these bones. And we can see these small diamond points which actually represent the animation which is happening. The next step would be to select our gun and the bones associated to it. But we can see any bones which has been linked to the gun, right? For that, we have to go towards the outliner window and uncheck this eye option. Right now, we can see the gun as well as the bones which are controlling it. Now we can freely select our gun like this. Then we have to go towards this tab, which is this constraints tab. Then over here, we can select this child of constraint. Over here, there is an option to select the target. So when we click on this eyedropper and select this animated character as the target, we can see that nothing has changed right now. For the gun animation to get linked to the character's arm animation, we have to select the vertex group. Click over here and select one of the bone of the animated character, which is having the same movement that we need for the gun. I know it's a bit confusing, but for now, let's select some random bone. Let's select this bone called left hand thumb 2. And after that, we can see that the gun has been transformed over here. And in order to fix that, we can select this set inverse option. And this is where the magic happens. So if we play our animation like this, we can see that the gun is following the same movement of our hand. Or to be more precise, it is following the same animation of our left hand thumb. If we change it to something like the left hand index 4, then click on the set inverse and play our animation, we can see the same animation happening over here. Right now, we have to scale our gun like this. We have to move it closer towards our character's arms. And to place it more accurately, we can click on 1. Then we can click on G and place it over here. Then we can go to the side view by clicking on 3. Then we can move it a little bit back over here. And if we do that, we can see our Leonard character is perfectly holding our gun. And if we play our animation, we can see that the gun is moving perfectly with our character's arms. The next thing would be to do the same thing with our bullet. And for that, let's select our bullet like this. Then we can do the same thing, which is to add a child of constraint. Then we can select the armature once again. And we can select the same left hand index 4 bone over here. Then again, in order to fix the position, we can click on the set inverse. Then again, we can scale down the bullet because right now the bullet is really big. So go towards the first view. Then we can decrease the size like this. Also, it's better to move it over here next to our barrel. Then again click on the bullet and move it closer towards our gun like this. And if we go towards our perspective view and play our animation like this, we can see that the character, the gun as well as the bullet are following the same animation like this. So right now all these elements are ready. If we play our animation, we have everything linked to each other, which is actually good. But there is one simple problem with our animation, and that is if we look from our character's shoulder like this, we can see that our character is shooting towards that direction, to that area. And we want him to shoot towards our armadillo character like this. So first of all, let's fix where our armadillo is gonna be. So I think this is a perfect position, like few feet away from him. But we need to move our character's arms towards the side. But we have a problem. We are dealing with a pre-rigged animation, which means that each keyframes have been placed carefully by the respective owner of this model. And even if we change one of these keyframes, it's not gonna affect the rest of the keyframes. It's just gonna affect that one singular frame in our scene. And I'm gonna show you how to modify this. And I guess this is not the best way to do it, but it gets the job done. So let's see how to work that out. And if there are any other ways to do this without actually breaking our animation, please do comment below. So this is what I found out. So over here we can go towards our editor type and change it to graph editor. And this graph shows what our animation is happening on our screen. So everything linked to our animation will be shown on this graph over here. So if you tweak these values, we can actually change some part of our animation and we can make our Leonard actually point towards our armadillo. So for that, let's go towards our Leonard's bone by clicking over here. Then we can change our mode to pose mode. Then if we go towards our data area over here and open this viewport display and change the show mode to in front, we can see the bones in front of our character. So this pose mode is the only place in which we can control our armature. So if we click on this shoulder bone over here and if we click on R to rotate it, we can see that our character's arms are moving as per our command like this. But we can see that we have all these keyframes over here, 36 to be exact. So in order to make our character point towards the armadillo, we need to change all these points. But if we select our keyframes like this, then click on G and move these points, we can see that our Leonard is also having some changes happening. So the only thing left to do is to find the right lines for our animation. So for an example, if we pick our red one and move it like this, we can see that it moves up and down. And in order to have a front view, we can go towards here and click on this 3D viewport. And we can change our character to have this front view over here so that we can see our characters from both these views. Now if we click on G and move these values like this, we can see that our character's arms are moving in an horizontal way like this. And after playing with these values, I found out that we can select this red line and move it a little bit down like this. Then we can select this green line and move it a little bit up like this. And if we zoom out, we can see that our character's gun is facing towards the armadillo, which is actually good. Now if you play our animation, we can see that our character is pointing towards the right direction. Now we have to do the same thing with the other bone as well. And for selecting the other bone, we can go towards this view and click on this one. Now we can do the same thing with this red line. Move it a little bit up like this. Now we can select this green line over here. Then move it a little bit down like this. And also we can select this violet line and change it a bit like this to have that arm space required for the gun. If the bones are getting in between the way, we can also turn off this in front option. Now if we check our arms, we can see that our character's arms are not perfect at this moment, but we can really change it in this graph area over here. So for that, I'm selecting this red one and moving it a little bit towards the left side like this. Then I'm selecting the orange one. It doesn't have much changes, it's just controlling the rotation of our arms. I think the blue one is the one that we need. So I'm selecting that one and I'm moving it and it's kind of making our animation better. We can also change the green one like this. And after playing with these values, we have this animation happening. Now the only thing left to do is to change the position of our gun. And for that, we can exit our pose mode and go towards our object mode. Then we can select our gun and move it a little bit over here. And I think it's getting better now. And after fixing that problem, we are having a new one with the gun. So if we go to our frame number 2, we can see that our gun is getting deformed. And that's because our bones are having some changes in the graph editor. And to simplify this video, we can actually delete the armature of our gun. So I'm going to delete that. And if we do that, our gun is having this perfect animation. Now we can change this back to timeline and we can drag it all the way down. And with that, we have an animation like this. The next step would be to animate our bullet. And right now we can see that the bullet has been placed over here, closer to our gun like this. But it has to be precisely inside our gun's barrel. And for that, let's click on the bullet and move it towards the barrel by clicking on G. Then we can move it like this. Or you can also use these keys to precisely move it towards our gun like this. And after doing that, we will have something like this. So only the tip of the bullet should be shown like this. This is for us to select the bullet once again and move it towards our armadillo. And this is exactly where our manual animation starts. And for that, let's move our playhead to the very first frame, which is frame number 0. So now we can move towards our viewport like this, and we can select our bullet by clicking on it. Then we can press on the I button on our keyboard to add a keyframe like this. And after adding that, we can see that a small dot has been appeared over here, which means that our keyframe has been added to our timeline. Now before animating our bullet, let's go towards our output settings over here. And we have to be careful about few settings over here. First of all, the resolution is set at 1920 by 1080. We have to change that to 1080 by 1920. If we do that, we will have a camera with a vertical aspect ratio. The next settings is the frame rate. And if you don't know anything about frame rate, this is what it means. So in order for 1 second to happen in our animation, we need 24 frames. Which means that depending on the movement of our character or the animation, there are going to be 24 frames which are combined together to create that 1 second of animation. For an example, this is the 24th mark over here. And in these 24 frames, all these movements are happening on our character. And if we change our frame rate to 30, now for 1 second to complete, there are going to be 30 frames that has been added to the scene. Similarly, that's what all these values means. So right now our animation starts at the very first frame and ends at the 250th frame, which means that there are going to be 8 seconds in our animation. So if you run our animation from the very first frame all the way till the 250th frame, there are going to be 8 seconds and few other milliseconds happening on our video. And this calculation only applies to our 30 frames per second timeline. If we change our frame rate to 120, now the calculation completely changes. Which means that in our previous 30 frames per second settings, we had 8 seconds. But if we change that to 120, we will only have 2 seconds as our output. I'm going to set this at 30 frames per second right now. So what you have to keep in mind is that for every 30 frames, you will get 1 second as the output. So the 30th frame mark is going to be our first second. The 60th mark will be our second second. And the 90th mark will be our third second. Like that, it goes all the way till our 8th second over here. And we can also increase this value by changing this end value to something bigger. For an example, if you want 10 seconds of output, we have to change this end value to 300. Or if you want something smaller like 5 seconds, then we can change this to 150. Then we can also give an output location in which our animation will be exported. And in order to select a folder, we can click over here. Then you can locate your output folder like this. And you can also give a file name for our exported video. And if you click on accept, it will be saved over here. You can render this in the PNG format or you can choose as video format. And these are the exact output settings I'm using in order to make videos like this. We can use the shortcut Ctrl+S to save our file. And now we can come back to our bullet animation. And for that, let's select our bullet. And we can see that our keyframe is already there. Now let's move towards the 150th frame, which in our frame rate means that our 5th second. And now we can move our bullet towards our armadillo like this. And again, we can click on I to confirm our keyframe. Now, if we play our animation, we can see that the bullets slowly go towards our armadillo like this. But there is one small thing we have to do over here, and that is, if we zoom towards our gun and go towards like our second or third frame, we can see that our bullet starts moving like this. But I want the animation to start at the 18th frame over here. So in order to modify the animation we just did, we can select our first keyframe and we can move it towards our 18th frame like this. So when our character is firing in the animation, the bullet stays inside. And this is where the character pulls the trigger. Until the 18th frame, we shouldn't do much to our bullet because there is no movement happening. And our character pulls the trigger over here on the 17th or 16th frame. And I guess the bullet should only go on the 18th frame when our gun is positioned towards our armadillo, so that it will look a little bit more natural in our video. This gun animation that I'm doing right now can be completely wrong, but by now you might have understood how to make a bullet animation inside of this Blender software. So you can refer an actual video of a person shooting a bullet and pay attention to how things work and then mimic the same values inside of the software. So right now our bullet animation is almost done. The next step would be to add a camera and track whatever things we are doing inside of the scene. And we already have a camera over here. If you don't have a camera in your scene, what you can do is to go towards this add option. Then over here you can go towards this camera tab and add a camera to the scene. Or you can use a shortcut which is Shift plus A to bring the camera in the same manner. So I have a camera over here and we have already fixed the resolution, which was 1080 by 1920. And in order to go towards our camera view, we can either click on the 0 on our keyboard like this, or you can click on this icon over here, which will take you to the camera view. And you can see that our camera has been placed a little bit far away from our subject. We can bring all of that back, but before that, we have to change one settings inside of our camera. And in order to access that, we can go towards our camera section over here. And we can go towards this viewport display and increase this value to 1. And if we do that, we'll get more focus on whatever things we are trying to capture inside of our camera. We can zoom that view and fit it next to our scene. Then we can move our camera towards our character. And for that, it's better to use the number 1 key to go to the front view. Then we can drag our camera towards our subject like this. Then we can use the number 3 key and move it closer towards our subject. Now the orientation of the camera is pointed towards this direction, and in order to rotate the camera, the short key is the same, which is R. And if we move our cursor, we can see that our camera is rotating with us. And in order to move our camera more accurately, we can use the short keys, which is X, Y and Z, to lock it respectively to their axis. For an example, I am using the X key, and you can see that our camera will only move in the X direction like this. If we again click on X key, it will move up and down like this. In order to confirm our camera's location, we can just left click on our mouse like this. And again, we can click on R. And this time we can use a Z key to rotate our camera. And for that, I'm going towards our rotate key, which is R. Then I'm clicking on Z to rotate our camera like this. And the next step would be to lower our camera like this and make sure our character is there in the scene. Now the keyframing works exactly same as we did with the bullet. So if you want some movements happening with the camera, we can go towards our first frame like this and click on I to add a keyframe over here. Then we can move towards say 70th frame or like 80th frame like this. And if we move our camera towards our character like this and add one more keyframe, we can see that our animation will play like this. And as per our reference video, our camera is moving along with our bullet's direction. And keyframing the camera movement along with our bullet's direction is going to be a little bit tough. And even if you try to do it as neatly as possible, it won't look that natural or that smooth. And there is an easy fix or an easy hack to do it. And this method is going to make your animations 10 times better. So in order to do this camera movement, or in my words, that camera lock-in animation, we have to go towards our models like this. And on our 30th frame, we can see our bullet over here. So what we have to do now is to select our camera. Then we have to go towards our constraints tab over here. Then we have to add a track to constraint. And on the target, we have to select this bullet over here. And after targeting the bullet, we can see that our camera is tracking the movements of our bullet. And in order to confirm that, we can go towards our very first frame and we can play our animation like this. And over here, we can see that no matter wherever the camera goes, the bullet stays at the exact center of our camera. Now, if you want to do some crazy animations or do that zoomed in view of the bullet, what you have to do is to just move our camera towards the bullet. For an example, I am just moving the camera towards our bullet like this. And no matter wherever we point our camera, and no matter how much we play around with these toggles, we can see that our camera is going to track our bullet like this. And if we do it with the perfect keyframes over here, we will have the best ever video footages out there. So I'm quickly deleting these keyframes to start from scratch. So on our first frame, we can go towards the back side of our character like this. And make sure at this point you can see the character, the gun as well as the armadillo in our scene. And try to keep it as close as possible towards our character like this. After setting our scene, we can add our very first keyframe on our very first frame. And I'm going to use the I key to do that. Then on the 60th frame, I am moving the camera towards our bullet like this. And I'm going to add one more keyframe over here. Then on the 120th frame, I'm going to move the camera towards our armadillo so that we can see both of them on the scene like this. Then I'm going to add a keyframe over here and I'm just going to preview our animation. So our animation starts like this. our learner will fire the bullet. Then our bullet will go towards our character. Oh, this is not what I expected. So we have to move this point a little bit up like this. And again press on I to override this keyframe. Now if you play our animation, we can see that our camera will go towards our character like this. Oh, there is one more issue happening over here on the 50th frame. And in order to fix that, we can move our camera over here like this. And again click on I to override this keyframe. The same thing is happening again over here. So in order to fix that, I'm just going to take the camera a little bit to this side. And I'm again overriding the keyframe by clicking on I. I hope it got fixed right now. Yeah, it's perfect. So from our first frame all the way till our 60th frame, our camera is going towards a bullet. From the 60th frame till the 120th frame, our camera rotates like this and gives us an image of both the character as well as our armadillo model. Then after that, the bullet hits the armadillo like this. And maybe at this point, we can zoom in our camera a little bit towards our armadillo like this and add a keyframe over here. And if you play our animation, we can see the same result, which is our camera will just flip and then we will have the view of both these characters. Then our camera will zoom in towards our armadillo like this, and that's perfect. So for this video, we'll be covering this much of animation, and I'm happy to say that we have done most of the work. And after turning our cube back on, we can see that our animation kind of looks good. But you know, the cube is not perfectly placed at the right position. And for that, we can go towards the first view and we can use this as a reference and pull down our cube like this. Now, if you play our animation, we can see that the guy is shooting towards our armadillo like this. And everyone is standing on the exact land over here. And that's perfect. The only two steps remaining is to add our grass to the scene and also to add our lighting. So if you just hide this one and just move this towards here and click on this option, which is the rendered view, we can see that there are no lights happening on our scene. There is actually one light which we added in order to see our bullet material. We don't really need that. We are just going to delete that light. And after deleting that light, we can see that there are no other light sources in our subject. So we need to add our lights and make this scene a little bit more better. And much before that, we are going to add our grass into the scene, which is going to be the very next step we will be discussing. And adding a grass into the scene is really easy. First of all, let's change this mode to solid mode so that we will have a little bit less lag when we are working on this scene. The next step would be to add a plane, and for adding a plane, we can click the shortcut which is Shift+A to bring in this option. Or you can go over here just like I told you before, and you can click on mesh and add a plane over here. Then we can scale our plane like this. This would be great. We can also move it a little bit over to this direction like this so that all of these elements will be in the center. And then we can change this viewport settings to materials preview mode. And after doing that, we can see our white plane over here. The next step would be to add a particle system to this plane. And for adding that, we can go towards the particle system over here. Then we can click on this plus button. And over here, we are going to click on this tab called hair. Then we can change this value to 50,000 or 100,000. It's up to you. The more this number, the more our grass will be. And we can change this hair length to 0.1. And after doing that, we can see the small grass particles on our scene like this. Right now, my system is kind of struggling because of the number of particles and also because of the screen record which is happening in the background. So if you have a decent PC, you can change this value to 100,000 or 200,000. It's up to you. The next thing to do is to click on this advanced option. And when we do that, we will have this physics tab over here. Now we can change this Brownian value to 0.1. And if we do that, we can see this random grass appearing on our screen. And we can give this plane a random color like green. And for adding that color, we can go over here. Then we can add a new material. Then we can change the color of this material to green like this. And after doing that, we will have this fake grass happening on our screen like this. The next step would be to add our light sources into our scene. And for adding a light source, we can go towards our add button. Then we can click on the light and we can see that we have 4 different options available over here. First of all, we can take this area light and we can take it all the way up over here like this. And in order to see what's happening on our scene, we can go towards this render view over here. And we can see that a small beam of light is being projected towards our grass as well as our characters. Now if we click on S to scale up our light source like this, we can see that the light is also getting spread a little bit towards all of this area. But in order to increase the intensity of our light, we have to go towards our light settings over here. Then we can increase the power all the way up till maybe 75. Now if we move it a little bit up like this and scale it up, we can see most of the things which are happening on our scene. This is just going to be a small source of light which is happening on our scene. So let's take it all the way up like this and also scale it. Then we can also increase the intensity by increasing the power like this. The main lights which will be happening on our scene will be a spotlight. And in order to add a spotlight, let's go towards this area over here. Then on the light section, we can add a spotlight. We can take it all the way up like this and place it on top of our character. Then we can increase the power and also take it all the way up like this. We can also play with the size of this light and also the blend in. So the more we take this blend value up like this, the softer the light is going to be projected towards this character. And we can also increase our light source power over here like this. And one more thing we can do is to change the color, which I'm not gonna do because white is perfect for our scene. But if you want to give it a warm light, you can click on the white color and take this towards the yellow shade like this. But right now I'm just gonna play with the power settings like this. And also I'm gonna preview it on our camera by clicking on this button. And we can see that we need more light on our character. So I'm gonna increase the power like this. And also I'm gonna increase the power of our spotlight by clicking over here and increasing the power all the way like this. And also take it all the way up and increase it a little bit more. I'm also going to add one more spotlight on top of our armadillo model, and I'm going to increase the strength as well and also increase the blend a little bit. I'm also going to use that track to constrain on our light source, which is also a good trick. So I'm going to select our armature and I'm going to give it a little bit more light like this. Then I'm going to decrease the intensity of our light, and I'm going to do the same thing with our armadillo as well. And if you play enough with these light source settings, you will get a much better result than this. I'm just going to use this random light source settings over here just for this video. Alright, quick pause. The render at this point looked a little bit bad in my opinion. So I'm going to do two changes to our scene. And one of that would be to copy our light source, which is this one. I'm going to click on Shift D to duplicate it. Then I'm going to rotate it like this on the Y axis, like this, and turn it like 90 degrees towards here. And before that, let's uncheck the cube, or it's gonna get in the way. And I'm gonna move it towards the left like this, so that one of the light source will be on the right hand side. And we are gonna duplicate this and place one over here. So before that, I'm just gonna scale it down, so the light source will also be scaled down like this. Then I'm gonna decrease the intensity over here and take it all the way down. We don't need that much intensity. Then I'm going to duplicate it by clicking on Shift D. Then I'm going to move it to the other direction with the help of the X key. Then I'm going to rotate it Y axis 180 degrees like this. And if we decrease the light source all the way down and turn on our cube and play our animation, we can see that our character looks bright now. Now we have to decrease this light a little bit, not a little bit, we are going to take it all the way down. I'm going to set this to 500. Then the next step would be to see if the key light has any impact on our model. And yes, that is good. And now finally, if we preview our animation, it's kind of looking good, but there is one shadow happening on the side. That's because our light source has to be moved a little bit towards here like this. And if we move that, we have that clean background. Now we can preview our animation, and I think it's much better than the older version. And guys, it's all about the lighting, so do change it accordingly, and you can fix it anywhere you like. even if you feel like the character is dark or the other models in the scene is dark, you can just place it like this and just magically turn our scene 10 times better. And after doing all of this, our animation is finally ready. The only thing left to do is to render our animation, and we can go towards our render settings and we can set our render engine to EV. And that's pretty much the settings I'm using to render this animation. And guys, do keep in mind that the renders are going to be horribly long. And for rendering like 150 frames, it's gonna take around 3 to 4 hours. So have patience, keep your laptop or PC on hold. Don't try to run any high intensive applications while you are rendering a scene inside of Blender. And as you have previously created our output location over here, our Zack D Film beginner tutorial is done. The only thing left to do is to go towards our render settings and click on this render animation. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye and take care.